money, money, money. Money, money, money. We got that fly Nubian money. We talk about that money. We all about that money. Money, 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 money. We got that fly Nubian money. We talk about that money. We all about that money. We love our black skin, our melanin, always focusing in on that money. We always win, money never thin, 'cause we hustling, always focusing in money, 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 money. We got that money, 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 money. We that fly Nubian money, boss talk, don't it? We stack it up.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money. I'm Tiara Williams. I'm also known as Miss Black Hollywood and Karma J. It just really depends on the day. And today we are talking about a really interesting topic. I mean, the story is basically, it's just wild, right? When you think about it. A Black mother named Sharice Doyley was in active labor in Florida. She had a birth plan. She wanted a vaginal delivery. And when doctors pushed for a C-section, she said no. And instead of respecting her decisions, the hospital escalated the situation. From her hospital bed, while she was still in active labor, 12 hours later, Sharice was brought into a Zoom court hearing with judges, lawyers, and medical staff all deciding what should happen with her body and her baby in real time. I'm gonna just let that sit for a second because, I think it's ridiculous to not allow people to make the decision, especially Black women, the decision to do what they want to do. Now, of course, there are some things that are, so we'll talk today. Before I get into it, we'll talk about all the things, like why she would want to do this, why the doctors were against it. Of course, I can't have this conversation by myself. I am joined by some fabulous queens, my favorite queens of all queens. I'm here with Marlo Layson, who is a television and film producer. I'm also joined by my good homegirl, Debra will win, Debra E. Williams. And let's talk about it. Let's dive into this thing. Queens, how are you feeling today? How's your Monday? How was your weekend? Is everybody good?
Good to go. Ready to dive into this topic.
All right, good. All right, Marlo, let's start with you. What were your initial thoughts when you heard that a hospital basically took a Black woman to court while she was in active labor? Let's just start there.
The same as always. The only logical reaction is disgust, right? Like at this time, this is not the time, right? Obviously, nobody read the room, and the doctors and the nurses felt like they knew better, right? That little God complex going on. But then I saw it was in Florida. I was like, you know what? No surprise there.
Yeah, yeah. What about you? What about you, Deborah? What did you think when you initially heard this?
My goodness, when I heard this story, I'm like, do we even own ourselves? Are we back at the slavery days where we were counted as three-fifths? I can't believe it. I can't believe it in 2026. This is what we're going through still. Do
Yeah,
we not own ourselves? Are we just counted as a number and not as a person? And are we not valued as a person?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess so. Really, a quick show of hands for all of the queens on the panel. Who had a C-section? Has anybody ever had to have a C-section, emergency C-section? I have. I have. So what happened was I also went to the doctor when I had my Lauren. I gave incision to her 15 years ago. And basically I had a birth plan and I was like, I want to have her vaginally. I want to have her vaginally. I had watched enough videos. And what happened was my daughter wouldn't come out. She just would not come down the canal. She had her hands behind her head and her legs crossed and she was chilling. And so after, I think I had been in labor maybe 38 hours, I was exhausted. And she ended up like going to the restroom. She had pooped in my womb, and she had digested some or swallowed some of it. So, in the moment he was like, I got to go in and take her out. And I was like, and I remember just feeling, my mother was not here in LA. I was 8 years old, and I just cried because I was like, I was supposed to have her eventually. So it was really like, just for a young woman, I can just only imagine, even with listening to Sharice's story, I just remember myself being like, I don't know. And I was crying, and his mother was there, and she was like, it's gonna be okay. I mean, it's okay, right? But it was kind of traumatic for me, but you all did not have to deal with that. Everybody had babies from their wombs. What about anybody in the chat? Did anybody have to have C-sections? Did you have to be, and what was the situation around your C-section? Because mine was a little traumatic. And then, and then it was like we were separated because the NICU was under construction. So they took her to a parent, like a sister, what is it? A sister hospital up the street. And I was like, hey, what my baby? It was just, to be honest, when I think about it, it was like really like a lot to take in for somebody that had just had a baby. And so I just keep replaying that. It was, we were reunited maybe like 4 days later, and she wouldn't latch onto my breast. It was just, y'all, it was like a lot going on, right? So yeah, so that's what happened with me. So let's go to the video itself. Let's lay no, I don't want to play the video yet. Let's lay the foundation
I
for
just
all the
wanted to
details.
say something really quick to y'all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
my coworker, she's always had C-sections. And
Mm-hmm.
I was saying to her, don't you ever want to have one of the babies vaginally? She has 4 children now.
Mm-hmm.
And she said they told her at the hospital that once you have a C-section, you always have to have a C-section.
Yep.
And I didn't know that because both of my children were vaginal births. So I wonder if that was really true. Of course, I'm not bearing any children anymore, but I'm just like, wow. But it's also very expensive too. And I know we'll get into the conversation about that. It costs more to have a C-section, and they are leaning more towards it now more than ever.
Yeah, I mean, even without any complications, they ask you to consider because they can bill more. So it's
Mhm.
absolutely more profitable for women to have C-sections than actual births. I wonder if they're asking Black women more than, because literally the two things that I noticed that are pretty much consistent across the board is Black women being asked to have hysterectomies, which I'm having very soon, and asked to have C-sections. And those two things are, it's a surgery. They can bill for it. It's expensive and all of the other things. Marlo, did you want to add anything before I go to laying our foundation for the video?
No, just I definitely heard that before too, Deborah, with people that I know previously, friends and family members who were just resigned. I don't know whether it's a fact, right?
Hmm.
But they had already been resigned to every subsequent birth after the C-section, they would have another C-section.
Yeah. So what they say is like once you have a C-section, there's like scarring and there's tissue there. And so if you have it and there's scarring and tissue, they may not be able to, your baby might not be able to work around the tissue. They might not be able to get to the baby. It might not be able to come out. So afterwards they just go in the same way and pull the baby out. And if you have more than one, which this young lady had that we're about to, she had more than one C-section. I don't want to disclose all the details, but basically that's the whole thing. Like there's scarring and there's tissue that builds up around those healed wounds. And so it's like, can the babies get around that? Is it gonna be harder for the doctor to get to it? So let's just lay the foundation before we see the video of them in court from the hospital bed. Let's just hear the facts.
Child is on the way and you have a birth plan. This time you're planning on doing it vaginally because the other times you had C-sections and you know just how dangerous they are and how hard it is to recover from them. You're in labor, so you head over to the hospital. You tell them their birth plan, and as y'all are talking, they keep trying to get you to have a C-section as opposed to your birth plan. And it's to your understanding that there's a 2% chance that you could have a uterine rupture. And in your very brilliant mind, you're like, well, that's a very low percentage. I'm going to stick to the birth plan. They keep pressuring you, but eventually it kind of seems like Y'all are on the same page, they leave you alone, and you think everything's cool. Only next thing you know, you are in front of a judge virtually in labor. You are in front of a judge. Why? Because the staff wants a judge to force you to have a C-section. You're in shock and confused, so you ask them for a lawyer or at least a patient advocate, and they're like, yeah, you don't get that. You're in there for hours, in labor, by the way. And eventually the judge decides that if the staff thinks that you need a C-section, they can give you a C-section against your will. And you do end up having that C-section. Well, you don't have to actually imagine that because that really happened to somebody. This is absolutely disgusting.
So that's the foundation of the story. And so, if you are just joining us, we are talking about Sharice Doyley, who was a Black woman that was taken to court while she was actively in labor. And ultimately, as we just found out, she ended up having to have that C-section anyway. So, Marlo, I'm coming to you first. Now, she went through all of that, went through all of that. And when she fell asleep, it was under supposedly she woke up and was being wheeled into the operating room. What do you think about that?
I wonder, like, who was she at the hospital with? You mentioned, being young, your mom not being there. So my first thing is, who was at the hospital with her? I think
Mhm.
it's so important because I was a person who would have children without epidural, right? I'm a hold off on getting the epidural as long as I can, but I need my mind to be clear in order to be able to withstand the pain of labor, right? So you always need to have somebody with you whenever possible who can advocate on your behalf, who is in their right mind, who is not overcome with pain and not thinking clearly. You need to have somebody there to be able to say, hey, is this what we really need? And then when you wake up and you see you being rolled to surgery, that person can be there to say, this is what's going on while you were asleep, this is what happened. But there's no way I would have trusted the same doctors that had me breathing through contractions and talking to a judge at the same time. Ain't no way that anybody in that situation is a trustworthy person. It feels like they wanted to get it over with. She had been in labor for a long time, holding up a room. A lot of y'all don't know that most of these hospitals are managed by what you call VC firms, and they
Mhm.
don't care. They are trying to turn those rooms over like hotel rooms. And so I think that the if I could ask her anything, it would be who was there with her, because it sounds like this is something that she was enduring on her own.
Yeah, I definitely had considered, like, well, where is the father? Where is your mama? Where is your daddy? Somebody. But I think it's also important to know. I wonder, because she is a doula, and maybe she could not have the obviously, and have her own baby. I do wonder all of the details around her being a doula and deciding to have the baby in the hospital, because typically doulas are absolutely against having the babies that way. So I just think that that's interesting. Deborah, what are your thoughts about the video and, the idea of nobody being there and, all of that?
Just like you said, because she's a doula, something must have happened for her to have to go into a hospital, number one. Maybe her levels were up, blood pressure might have been high, where you definitely need to be in a hospital in those type of cases. Maybe the umbilical cord is wrapped around the baby in a certain way. We don't know all the dynamics. So,
Mhm.
for her to be in a hospital, she must have had something going on where she couldn't deliver at home or deliver with another doula. Because if you're a doula, you can't deliver your own baby.
Yeah.
Like you need some assistance. And then also having, for me, I choose Black physicians. I choose physicians that care about me, that know about my community. And that's real important for me, whether, my husband's there or not, or my mom, or, whoever is not there with me. I know my physician will have my back. Her team will have my back. So that's very, very important for me. And it's important for all of us in our community that we should seek out, those type of physicians, or build a relationship with a physician that will have your back and support your decision.
Yeah, I wonder if, doctors are taught to make sure that they do what's best for the patient, but also protect themselves, right? So if they have this woman that has a uterine rupture, even though it's a small percentage, what did they say? It was less than 5% in terms of that actually being happening, and them saying, well, I mean, it's still a possibility that it could happen. Marlo, do you understand why the doctors went so hard as to get a judge and get on StreamYard, on Zoom? That's
They
funny.
might have been on
They
StreamYard.
might have been on StreamYard, but on Zoom to have this meeting. Is there anything, any part of you that can understand why they could have done that?
Yeah, because the United States of America is the most litigious country in the world. So the doctor and the hospital system, if it's part of a larger system, are looking out for number one. They are making sure that they are protected when this woman is making, this decision. And even though it is under 5% or it's only 2%, it's still a percent, and you don't want to be the doctor that is facing some type of censure, possibly losing your medical license because you are saying, all right, the 2% risk, you want it, you have it. Because even in that scenario where that's what she wants, she still would have the ability to sue the hospital. And so I think that because of litigation in this country, that's why things have so many rules. That's why there are so many forms to sign. That's why there are so many waivers, because people, attorneys, no knock on the attorneys. I love y'all. Some of y'all my friends and family, but the attorneys keep everybody tight, from school districts to hospitals to local governments, because they are always looking for a little lawsuit gavel situation. So I think that they definitely were thinking about themselves, and making sure that the hospital was protected while this patient was, exercising her own right.
Yeah. Deborah, where do you think the medical advice, where did the medical advice kind of end, and did force begin? Like in this situation, like do we see, like, is there a space in this situation where medical advice kind of stopped and, force began? Where do you think that was? Or if it was at all?
I'm wondering if she even had like a patient care advocate come speak to her, before actually coming in with a laptop in her face saying, "Hi, we're going to court right now." Like, did someone come and say to her, like, there's social workers on staff at hospitals, but in this case, I'm not sure if they did that or not, but that should have been like her HIPAA right. Should have
Yeah.
been where she had gotten, you know, um, spoken to about the situation, the parameters of it, and if you don't do X, Y, Z, then we go to court. But it seems like they might have just came right in with the laptop and did whatever they wanted to do.
Okay. Well, let's go to this. Let's go to the actual video. Let's watch the whole situation roll out, and we'll figure out if it was forced or what it was, what it feels like.
Florida. The state of Florida has filed a petition for declaratory judgment. They're asking for an emergency C-section be granted by the court.
I have not had a chance to be able to consult with my own legal representation, and I'm trying to understand how you are taking my rights away as a patient to be able to decide my own care, to give me an emergency C-section against my will.
Let me ask you about that. What about the risk to the child?
Anytime you go into childbirth, whether you do a vaginal or a C-section, there's inherent risk to the mother and the baby. I have other children out here in the world that need me. If I die from a C-section, nobody on this call is going to take care of my children.
You have a new doctor coming on. I don't know.
Yeah, no, they don't have anybody African American that they can give me.
Let me ask you. I don't know that. Then I don't find that race really has much to do with this, ma'am.
It does have much to do with it, because historically, Black people do better when they have healthcare providers that look like me. It's nobody Black in here. I'm so tired of this. I'm over this whole situation. Like, y'all are gonna make me have level 3 tracing. How bad y'all stressing me out.
Ms. Doyle, that's what's going to be entered. I'm going to circulate this proposed order to the other attorneys. Enter this in today, not requiring anything except for an emergency basis.
Thank you so much, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you spending 2 hours on a Sunday going through my medical history and fighting for my vagina and my baby. Tell them I don't want to be on. Y'all can have your own meeting. I want to see my child.
Okay. So basically, even after all of that, I think, when they granted that, like I said, she went to bed or took a nap or whatever, and she woke up and was being wheeled into the OR. So I think, after they heard that or got that approval from the courts to just like, I'm gonna leave it up to the doctor to say like whether or not this is mandatory or not. And obviously they were already telling her you need to have a C-section. Marlo, what do you feel what do you think about what you just watched, about seeing the video?
They got on my nerves so bad. Like, women do not have rights in this country. And I need our country to stop looking at other countries where women are oppressed and being like, oh my God, let's save the women. Save the American women. Because why does she not have body autonomy? Why, after the judge's order, do they not let it ride? Right? I
Mhm.
would have felt better if they would have been like, you know what, girlie, you don't want to have a C-section. We're gonna put you in a cab, you gonna go home, find you another doula, and y'all do the thing at the house, right? But for you to just take away my choice in this matter, so let me just track it to make sure. You cannot have an abortion. If you're in Louisiana or you're in Florida, you cannot send away for an abortion pill to terminate a pregnancy. You cannot have that same pill that stops women from bleeding out. If in the event that this woman would have bled out, that very band mifepristone is what she would have needed in order to stop the bleeding. So she cannot stop the bleeding. She cannot choose not to have the C-section. She cannot choose not to have a baby. What is the choice?
Mhm.
There are no choices for women in this country, not as it relates to your body. And that to me is crazy. But the amount of junk science that persists and lays over Black people's heads in this country is ridiculous. You go back to Drapetomania. Drapetomania is how they determined why Black people ran away. It wasn't because we didn't want to be enslaved. It's because there was something psychologically in our brain that was different from everybody else that made us want to run away. Junk science has done more harm to Black communities, whether it was medical or sociological or psychological, than any other thing that we have been up against. The racism that is mixed into the examination of human beings, we ain't never gonna be free from that, y'all.
Yeah, yeah. I love that, actually. I love that thought. What do you think, Deborah? Like, what, after watching the video, watching the situation unfold, like, what did it make? First of all, how did it make you feel watching her have to explain herself in the middle of active labor? Again, she had been in labor 12 hours, right? By that time. How did that make you feel?
I, watching the video, I felt stressed for her. I felt stressed out, just as stressed as she felt. And that's why, she stated what I stated earlier. It's real important to get doctors that know your community, that look like you. I don't know what happened, why she waited till the last moment, but she even stated that. And they were like, ha 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 ha. Like that doesn't really matter. Like a doctor's a doctor. And we know there's been so many facts and statistics. They'll have us sit in pain forever before they actually hear us and believe us. And I felt like that was her situation. I really I felt that through the screen for her. I felt that it just should not have gone that far. It should not have gotten to where she has to defend herself. She didn't even have representation. Where was her attorney at?
Mhm.
She
I
was
mean,
representing
I'm
herself.
pretty sure, right? I'm pretty sure she didn't wasn't thinking I'm gonna need an attorney, right? They just hit her with a 1-2, because when do you ever go to the hospital thinking I'm going to need an attorney? And supposedly they just didn't get her an advocate. I think that's what the young lady said on the first video, that they said, oh no, there's not an advocate available to you. Like, so there was definitely some violations being violated, right? It just made me think about the average cost with insurance factored in overall, a vaginal versus a C-section. So vaginal birth costs about $15,700, while the C-section costs about $28,900. Now the that's just for the that's just for the procedure, right? So you have to also factor in it's major surgery, so there's longer hospital stays, there's more staff, more anesthesia, more recovery, all of the things. So it's more profitable for a woman to have a C-section than a vaginal birth because you can have a baby, y'all cuckoo, whatever. They check the baby, all of the things. And not too long after that, the baby is good, mom is good, they can go home. So, Marlo, do you think that that is a part of the process of them just getting what they can from insurance companies? Because all of that works together.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody is trying to squeeze as many dollars out of the situation as possible. And I think that the fact that there is a higher cost associated with the C-section, but also I would be curious to know the type of hospital this was. I can tell you from, I had my first child, I was a teenager. My second child, I was a little bit older, and we had good insurance by then. The difference in treatment in 6 years, because I was in an economically different situation, because my insurance was different, it's night and day. So I would also be very interested to know if she was in like a county hospital or a hospital that relies heavily on public funds, and that is contributing to her not really having a voice in this, because the treatment is very different. If you're in a private hospital, I had a procedure a couple of years ago. Everything was great. Everyone was so nice. The way that they were speaking to me, the anesthesiologist, everybody was cracking jokes. But I always remember my younger self when they left me in the hospital room, splayed open after having this baby, and everybody was going to deal with the baby, and the little young girl was just laying on the table like, what's next? And there is a huge discrepancy. If you don't have money or if you don't have access to insurance, the treatment and the respect, if you will, that you get in a medical situation is also very different. So that could be a factor in this as well.
I see. I just, you made me look it up. So it says she had her baby at UF Health Jacksonville, which is a prominent nonprofit academic health center in Jacksonville, Florida. It is not a public owned, it is a private hospital. So it's not the county. It's not, it is not the county hospital.
But
So,
it's a learning hospital, and
but
they
it's
ain't
a,
got time. It's a learning, it's a teaching
Mhm.
hospital, and that is another thing. She may have been dealing with, I have friends that have gone through medical school, and they say that the residency process is where they learn about medical racism. They learn it a little bit in class, but it's not until they get to see the higher up doctors that are supposed to be their mentors, and the way that they speak to different types of patients, the way that they cater to different types of patients. So we may be looking at that, right? These bad practices that come from older doctors that are just being passed on to younger doctors, and they think that our pain tolerance is higher. If you are Black and you need pain management, they are going to give you the least amount of pain management possibly, because they also think you about to be a drug addict up in there using, right? There are so many barriers when it comes to Black people finding quality care, and usually that's only going to come from a Black provider or a white provider that has gotten rid of their biases, right? Checked their biases and gotten rid of them, but it doesn't really happen that often.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's interesting because, as I mentioned before, y'all, I am getting a hysterectomy soon. And one of the things that we did for the last 4 or 5 years was try to treat my fibroids, right? We've tried to do it through food. All of my life, I've had to deal with fibroids. And so it's just made me bleed heavily. TMI, we family here, but it's made me bleed heavily. And almost to the point where I would just have to go get a blood transfusion on a Tuesday. Or if I felt like kind of weak, I'd be like, oh, my iron's low. So we went through so many things. I mean, I would say since high school, really. But in the last 5 years, me and my OBGYN is in Africa, is a Black woman. Like, she is blackity black. She was like, all right, well, listen, it's an option to have a hysterectomy, but let's do everything we can that we can. And we did everything we can since COVID, right? And so now she was like, well, I just think that it would just be better if you don't want to have more children. Here's the situation. So she partnered with another. My surgeon is white, but my surgeon is like foreign. She's like not from America. So it's different. She was like, well, let me make sure I got all your stuff. And do you like overly like she's a woman. So it's just different. So I say that to say that, I believe that. I mean, everybody that treats me as either of color, if I couldn't find like, I mean, I'll even go Spanish if, because I feel like, I go black and brown. It just depends on, their level of how they are paying attention, if they are paying attention. Deborah, first of all, I know you said that the providers that you select are African American or black or just black. And so how important in this situation, she called it out, right? Even to the point where the judge was like, well, I mean, I don't think that has anything to do with it, kind of played dumb. But there's all these white faces on the call and the disconnect. What I know is that a lot of the times, I'm not going to say white people can't have empathy unless you see yourself. Sometimes you can't have empathy for others unless you see yourself or can relate to. So sometimes it's hard for, I would say, for others to relate to each other because it's like you don't see that as like your daughter or your sister, or that's how we relate. So do you think that her calling it out, what do you think about like just that process of her saying like, listen, y'all all white in here? And do you think that that's always the situation where white people cannot relate? Or do you think, I mean, she didn't have the time to research and say, are these black people, allies? Like, how do we approach situations like that when we're in a situation that is like, we can't do anything about it? How would you have handled it?
I always remember this is America, with America spelled with KKK in it. And I always think from that perspective, like, no, it's always a black and white thing here. We don't, I always think that way. I think about my community first, because it puts it in perspective. Like, if you haven't had the struggles we've had, how can you really understand? If you've never been treated the way we've been treated, how can you understand the pain that we go through? How can you understand the disadvantages that we've had? You would just look at it and say, oh, you've lived your privileged life. And then when you look at us, you think we're crying and whining about things, and we're not. We That woman has a right. It was her right to not have that child by a C-section. And then you're going to force, as has been done to us, if we study the history, has been done to us for hundreds of years. You force us to do things that we don't want to do. So I don't think they have the same sympathetic thought towards us. They can say they do, but they don't really. Like, we have so many stories, guys, and we all know this, of things that have been done to us as a community. And in this situation, it's like, do we even own ourselves? Do we own our thoughts? Do we own our feelings? Do we own our processes?
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't be still telling this same story in 2026. We should not. She wants to have a vaginal birth. Okay, let's go. Let's do it. This is what the patient wants. If there's extreme danger, then we have to let her know, hey, listen, you hear the bells and whistles on those machines saying, hey, your vitals are high. Those things alarm. They would let you know. We can't do the vaginal. Now let's go to the C-section. But at least give her the chance. They wasn't even trying to give her the chance.
Yeah. Marlo, what would you have done before I go to this next video? Because I want to hear it from a doctor. Exactly, like what was the why? What was the most? What's alarming about this case, and why they went through such extremes to give her a C-section? So I want to know, and Deborah, you can briefly answer afterwards because I don't think you told me. But in this particular situation, had you been in the bed, what would you have done?
Honestly, I don't know, but I will tell you this. My last pregnancy, I was pre-eclamptic, right? I was having issues at the 11th hour. My blood pressure starts to spike. And I just remembered in my two previous births that there was one position that I would lay in and the baby would move. And with the third pregnancy, she was not moving, but I wasn't in that position. And finally, there was an old nurse. She had a really bad attitude. She was a Black lady. And eventually there was a young girl, a younger nurse, and I was like, hey, could you help me move and lower my bed? And she did. She helped me turn over on my side, and she helped lower the part at the foot. She helped to lower that, so I was on a bit of an incline. Wouldn't you know it, within 15 minutes, my contractions start spiking because this baby has moved to where she needs to be, according to my body, to comfortably come on out of there. And I think that you just have to advocate for yourself. Like, people be having a hard day at work. You got into it with your man before you came to work. You can't separate work from your man, get on your nerves. You got to pay your bills. Life is life, and right? All of that's going on. But you have a job, right, in the medical field where you are providing care. So you really got to stop that stuff at the door. But you, as the patient, you got to have a little bit of moxie, and you got to have a little bit of bravado and brashness so that you can say, hey, I did this before. This ain't my first walk, especially if you already had a baby. This is what works for me. And I think that that's what I would have done, is advocated for myself and said, hey, in this situation, this is what works for me. This is what I want. And who knows, maybe I would have got up on out of there and went on to the house. But the state of Florida might have sent the law right on behind you. You never know.
Yeah. Real quick, before I play this video, what would you have done, Deborah?
I definitely would not have been in the state of Florida. That's number one. Florida, we hear those stories are crazy in Florida. But like Marlo said, I definitely would have advocated for myself. And like you have a right. You can sign yourself out and go to another hospital. Hey, this is not like, unless I'm 8 centimeters, I wouldn't take that chance. But I would have definitely, I would have advocated for myself, and having a village and having people around you that support you, calling somebody, also doing your own research. If it's your first child, your third child, your body changes, things change. So I definitely would have advocated for myself.
Yeah. I think that there's a fear that sometimes when it's almost like doctors know best. If somebody has gone to med school and you like, this person has gone to med school, has been a doctor for a billion years, right? They know what they're talking about. And so even if sometimes, and I know for myself, even in the moment when I was like, the doctor said, we're gonna have to take the baby out. Like, we sat here, sis, for 38 hours. Like, she ain't coming in the way that you want her to come, and I understand, but we got to take her out. And so even though all of that, I just think about how much in fear I was, like how scared I was. And I think sometimes when we go to the hospital, there's like a fear that we may have around just being at the hospital itself and just wanting to be alive, right? Because we know sometimes we go in and we don't come out. And so I just think there's a real trust that you have to have. That's why I'm so surprised that she didn't know the doctor, or it didn't seem like she knew the doctor that was delivering. She didn't know that team. I knew my doctor. We had spent some time together, like all of that. So I don't know. I just think I think it's just important to know who's delivering your baby, and having an experience with them all the way up until you have your baby. That way you can trust what they say, trust the process with them. So let's go to this next video. I want to talk about this doctor, or we're going to hear from this doctor, like what raised some flags for him with this case. And I think it's really interesting.
Let me get this is the craziest thing I ever seen.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I know you may be able to see me on your screen in just a second here. I'll introduce myself. I do see you on.
So I've received some comments and messages to talk about this case that happened in Florida in 2024. So if some of you may not know, there was a court-ordered C-section ordered for a patient who was in labor. So first I want to talk about the facts about the case, then I'm going to give my opinion. First thing, this mother was a doula, so she has experience in the birth world. Number two, this took place in Florida in September of 2024. She had 3 prior C-sections. From what I could read, I don't think she's ever had a vaginal birth or a VBAC. Next, she showed up to the hospital grossly ruptured, so her water had been broken. Next, I've been trying to piece together the timeline of how long she was in labor and how long after the court hearing, she had the C-section, but based from what I can read, she came to the hospital, she was in labor and she was ruptured. 12 hours after that happened, she had her court hearing, and that was in the afternoon. Then later that night at 2 a.m. is when the baby was born. So based on my guesstimation, if she was in labor for 12 hours prior to the case hearing, and the hearing happened in the afternoon, the baby came out at 2 in the morning, she was in labor for about a day. Next, baby apparently had some prolonged decels before the delivery, and baby also ended up in the NICU and needed respiratory support. So these are all the facts of the case. Things I'm not sure about is what her cervical exam was. She was in labor for a while. I'm not sure how much change she made or if she made change. I also saw some reports that she was on Pitocin. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I'm not sure if she had an epidural or not prior to the C-section. And this doula was refusing a C-section because she has had 3 prior C-sections, and then in her last C-section she had a hemorrhage. More things I don't know about her is I don't know why she had the first few C-sections. If you guys know me and see my videos, you all know I'm very pro VBAC. I love a good VBAC, but even I wouldn't recommend a VBAC after 3 C-sections because of the risks. Let's look at the study. Trial of labor after 2 cesarean sections. Oh, who's that? Okay, so based on this, the risk of uterine rupture with 1 C-section is about 0.72%. And if you look online, you'll see that's about 0.81%. And then after that, it's about 1.59%. So it's technically a 2-fold increase, but 0.7, 1.5, it's still overall pretty low. Now, the data for 3 C-sections and above is very limited because we don't have that much research about it. But if you look online, you'll see it's anywhere between 2 to 4%. Another thing doctors worry about is not just the risk of uterine rupture, is also the fact that how long will it take us to get to baby. If I have a patient who's trying for TOLAC after 1 C-section, she has scar tissue in her body for 1 C-section. Now with 2 C-section, there's more scar tissue. With 3 C-section, there's even more scar tissue. So we're worried about how long it'll take us to get to baby in case of emergency. All that being said, knowing what I know, I would have recommended this patient to get a repeat C-section. However, if she is mentally competent and I explain the risks and the benefits, I can't imagine doing a court case to force her to do something. Just to clarify, if you watch the whole court hearing and if you go through the timeline I made, after this hearing, it wasn't that the judge ordered a C-section and they went directly to the OR. That's not what happened. The C-section happened several hours later after the baby started decelling. And let's just take the court and the judges out of the picture. Let's say this patient came in, 3 C-sections, and she was trying to labor, and she refused, and the doctors allowed her to labor without having all this. I think the patient would have also agreed for the C-section once she started having those prolonged decels. If I was a doctor there, I'd be like, what are we doing? Even if the court ordered me to do a C-section, I would have declined if the patient was refusing. When I brought up the epidural point, I was wondering if she had an epidural or not because patients have a right to refuse anything. If she was that passionate about not having a C-section, she could have potentially walked out and gone to another hospital, but if she had an epidural, maybe that she couldn't. But to wrap it up, I agree with the doctor's recommendations for a repeat C-section based on my knowledge and my experience. Sometimes when you have a repeat section and you're trying to do it, it's cement in there. It can take minutes, 10, 20 minutes to get to baby, and in that time, baby could die.
All right. So I just wanted us to have some perspective about exactly what happened. I love how he laid all the facts. We understood that it wasn't just like she walked in 12 hours later, her water had already broke. There was all of these things that had already happened that could have possibly put the baby where it ended up anyway, in the NICU. Right. So even though I'm sure the baby is fine because we would know if the baby died or anything like that, but that didn't happen. It was just a scare. So Marlo, now that you've kind of heard the facts, and I use somebody of color again on purpose, right? I'm very intentional about these things because I want to hear from a different perspective. What does that change what your thoughts on the process at all?
Not really, because just hearing from a medical doctor and him saying that he would be aligned with the patient for as long as possible, and it seems like a doctor with a better bedside manner could have just convinced her to have the dang on C-section, right? Instead of you gonna get the long arm of the law involved, right? And you're gonna do this by force, whether I want it or not. All you're doing is making what should be a calm process so much more stressful and contentious, right? So you look at he said the D cells, I don't know what that is. I'm not a baby doctor. But he says that problem happened after the court. Like, she went to court and y'all would make the D cells stress. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure D cells got something to do with stress. So I think that I like his explanation, and a doctor like that with that bedside manner could have gotten a different result out of the patient. Those little nasty doctors that were on that Zoom call, I still don't agree with them, and I'm still not going to have the C-section. Thank you. Go get me a hot cocoa.
Okay. All right. And for the record, decels is short for decelerations in labor are temporary drops in the fetal heart rate below the baseline, often triggered by uterine contractions. So that's just so we know, that's basically the baby's his heart rate dropping or her heart rate dropping. What are your thoughts? Does that change what you would do, Deborah? Does that change your thought at all hearing the explanation from the doctor?
It does. It definitely does. I'm glad that we had that video because it gives us more context to the story. And in that situation, because levels are high, you have a uterine tear, or you perhaps could have one, then in their medical profession, I think she should have just went on and had the C-section and not had to go to court and all those things, and just plan properly the next time. You know. So yes, I would definitely have had the C-section.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that changed the way I thought about it. Like once he broke it down and talked about like the decels, like we said, seemed stressful, which was stressful for the baby, but just the situation, her being in labor, her coming with her water already broken, meaning maybe she was at home trying to deliver on her own and the baby wouldn't come. So who knows what happened before she got there. And then like I think at that point it's like let's just get the baby out, like we can't do the traditional route and all of that, but her having the idea like, oh my god, if you know there was that hemorrhaging from the last C-section though. Like there's just so many things to consider. Like I think she had a fear because it's like the last time I had a baby I was hemorrhaging. If I do this again and I bleed to death and I die, my children won't have a mother. So it's just like there's so many things to consider. What you look like you want to say something, Marlo. Do you want to
I
add
was about to
anything to
say,
that?
which is why bedside manner matters so much, right? Because she came there with a fear, a real fear, because she had this tear happen before and she had a hemorrhage. So I think that it just goes back to my point. The doctor is the person that's in control of the situation. They can make it more heightened. They can bring it all the way down and de-escalate it. And I think that the team that she had, you mentioned she probably didn't know these doctors. She said I don't know these fools, all y'all white. So it sounds like she just came there. So her birthing plan, I don't think really involved the hospital at all. It does sound like the hospital was kind of like a last resort, like we got to go ahead to the hospital because X, Y, Z. So it's rough out here, but just remember, Black women have the highest maternal mortality rate of any other women on the planet. We 50 deaths per 100,000 births. It does not sound like a lot, but if there are 100,000 babies born and 50 of those babies don't have a mom, that is a rough start to life. So it's rough out here for Black women trying to have a baby, trying to do the things.
Yeah, I mean,
Even
and
that's
then
rough. Like the old people used to say, you got one foot in the grave when you're having a baby.
yeah, I mean, people don't know how amazing women are. Like we really are amazing when it comes to having babies. I mean, because you are literally possibly sacrificing yourself to have a baby. It's such a uh man, it's so it's dangerous, it's beautiful, it's all of these things. But that made me think about when we go to the hospital, right? You remember there was a story of that woman that was in Texas that went to the hospital and was in pain, literally like moaning and groaning and crying and saying how much labor, how much pain she was in. And the nurse was like, anyway, so I don't know, honey, you're gonna have to stop all that yelling, like it was. And then she ended up being turned away and she had a baby on the highway down the road, like down the road. They had to pull off the highway and they had the baby. So it's just, we it's hard in those, it's it's not a situation where you can just kind of be off the cuff. That's what I'm saying. That's why a strategy and a plan is so important. I understand the idea of like, okay, I've been in labor, I've been at home trying to have this baby vaginally, as a doula or whatever she was trying to do. It wasn't working. It's like, okay, well, we've been here for 12 hours. The baby's not coming. Let's go to the hospital. But I think that puts her in more danger because you don't know. You don't know. Now you didn't have a plan. So I just think that we have to be a little bit more strategic in these situations because it's already dangerous. The baseline of having a baby is already dangerous. And then you add all of these other elements. Deborah, what do you think? Before I go to the last video, I want to show Sharice Doyley talking after after all of this it was over and just kind of her recapping her experience. But do you want to add anything to that?
I just want to say planning is necessary. Being your best healthy self is necessary. Um, and making sure you have a village and a team that that you can call on in emergency cases like this. If she had somebody to be there with her, they may have been able to talk her into having this cesarean sooner, not adding more stress to herself and her baby. So those things are important.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's watch the video, this last video. What I noticed is that I see
Therese, I'm the mom from the viral court ordered C-section hearing. And I want to just clear something up for y'all because a lot of people don't really understand what's going on here, right? This is more than just a sad, traumatic birth story. This is more than a misunderstanding and miscommunication with a patient and a provider, right? This is documented obstetric violence and medical racism right in front of you. Bodily autonomy does not go out the window when you get pregnant. The right as a patient to make informed choice and even informed refusals does not go out the window because you are pregnant. The question is not about whether you believe in VBACs or, your personal feelings. This is about whether it is okay to take a mentally competent grown adult woman to court to force them to have a surgery, a major surgery, against their will. And according to ACOG guidelines, this is unethical. We're not even going to get into the legal side of the constitutional and human and civil rights violations that occurred. This is not okay. This is never okay. All the people saying they need more context, no, you don't. Either you believe in bodily autonomy for women or you don't. Either you believe that women have the right to choose or you do not. Either you believe that women have rights or you don't. It's no in between. It's no on the fence. It's none of that.
All right. Either you believe it or you don't. Even though she sounded like she was reading a ChatGPT written statement, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it, Sharice. But girl, I hear what she's saying. She's saying my rights, my civil rights, my human rights were violated. I think this is a great opportunity to, have our final thoughts and tell people where they can find us. But also, Marlo, we're gonna do our final thoughts and then we're gonna do our obviously we are honoring Black women internationally and local and domestic and wherever, right? All month long. So we'll get into that. But I want to go to our final thoughts. Okay, let's keep them brief. And you can tell people where they can find you. But also, after watching her video and her just saying like, either you believe that or you're not. I guess my question, is there a fine line, you know, um, to all of this? Is there, there's so many variables to this situation that I don't know. This is at this point, I calculated she is 34 years old now. She was 32 at the time. I see some like palsy. I see some, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure if she has other medical conditions or what is happening, but like I can see that maybe she's not as I don't know. I don't know if she's healthy. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm just wondering if there's a fine line when it comes to women and their bodies and getting health care and sometimes us being stubborn or like I'm trying to figure out what is this. Marlo, can you help me? At the end of the day is going in. But is this it what is that fine line is what I'm trying to because I can see all the sides. Like my brain can see all of it. Like, girl, you better let them pull that baby out. But also like, yes, girl, it is your choice, but also, so where is that fine line? Help me
I think
understand it.
two things could be true, right? She could have had her rights violated, right? And her autonomy just stepped on by the doctors in the medical system. But they likely, maybe they saved the baby's life. Maybe the action that the doctors in the hospital took saved her life. So I think to me it's kind of like a break even, but that just because it's a break even doesn't mean that we don't monitor government overreach, right? Because today is her baby and the C-section. What will it be tomorrow if they know that they can keep running to the courts and getting injunctions? So I think two things can be true, and I wish her and her babies all the luck, and I hope that she has good health. And I think that the lesson for all of us is advocate for yourself. When you are going through something major in medical, God forbid you go through it alone. Please bring somebody, phone a friend, your cousin that's a CNA.
The
Bring her.
man you had the baby with. What are we talking about?
Well, listen, I don't know. Apparently, the person you had a baby with, he be doing other stuff. Future told Sierra he already had babies, so he wasn't even come and see little Future be born. So we just don't know what these people be doing sometimes. Okay, I'm just saying, have somebody, your cousin that's a CNA, she over there, bring her with you. Bring somebody with you that can advocate and help you. Do not go into major medical decisions alone. I think that that is the biggest takeaway. Understand your rights and ask questions. And if you have a doctor and they're not answering your questions, you're not getting the satisfaction, go get you another doctor because they out here by the dozens. It's so many doctors, you trip over them on the way to the next one.
Okay.
That said, I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about a doctor that is not a dime a dozen because she's from where I'm from and she's a baddie. Her name is Dr. Joya Creer Perry, and she's a board certified OBGYN and the founder of the National Birth Equity Collaborative. She spent years on the front lines of maternal health care, focusing specifically on the disparities that impact, why can't I talk, Black women before, during, and after childbirth. And she's doing it in the right state because our maternal mortality rate in this state of Louisiana is high. Her practice is based in Louisiana, and her work, or sorry, New Orleans, because we don't like to be based in Louisiana because we are from New Orleans. So her
There's a
work,
difference
her work is
for
based
sure.
in New Orleans, and she is deeply rooted in community care and policy change. She has advised national health organizations and policymakers on how to address the maternal mortality crisis, especially among young Black women. So there she is, Dr. Joya Creer Perry, a New Orleans native and a medical baddie out here advocating for the women to have that body autonomy that these laws are trying to take away. Happy International Women Forever, especially if they're Black.
Where can people find you?
Oh yeah, that's my IG right there. Go ahead and follow me on the Instagram, and let's build a little community of chatty, talking people that are talking about real issues and not no BS.
And just so you know,
Just
Marlo's
sometimes
handle,
BS. I like BS. I'm sorry, y'all. I
she
want to talk
do.
about BS too. I'm lying.
She do. And just know that her handle is her name backwards and forward. She never says that, but just like that, as a quick, because mental, like it looks like gibberish in life. Like when you look at it, it's like what? So it's just her name from backwards and forward. All right, Deborah. Where's I'm gonna ask you the same question, but also like just talk about where's the fine line, but also like what should women do in situations where they feel like they are not being heard, they're in serious critical moments where they are not being heard or they feel violated, but the time is of the essence. Like what do you do in the middle of a dangerous situation and where you have to really consider all the factors. Like, how do you do that with safely? And where's that fine line?
If you feel that way and you're right in the moment, all hospitals, all medical centers have a patient advocate hotline. Call it immediately. Call your state immediately. They have hotline numbers that you can call. You can report this information. Sometimes they have staff right there in the building, and they have social workers there as well to advocate on your behalf, your patient rights. So that would be the first thing that I would do if I'm not being heard or seen in the moment. And then I would follow up with my attorney, of course, afterwards to legally see where I was violated, what could have been done better, and to see if there's some uh, money that I can claim from this, you know? So that is what I would do. But I also want to say that if a Black woman can be overruled while bringing life into the world, then her choice was never hers from the begin with. And that's the real emergency. That is the real emergency. Like, if I didn't have a choice from the start, like, what are we doing? You know? And thank you so much. My name is Debra E. Williams. You can find me here. I'm on YouTube as Debra Will Win, and I love having cultural conversations here on Fly Nubian Money with you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and we love having you, and we love having you. So listen, before my final thought, I want to just say this because we are no, I'm gonna say my final thought, and then we're gonna get out of here. Um, I just think that it's so important. Black women, I know that we have our plans, but like make sure that you have a plan on top of a plan on top of a plan. I believe in strategy and I believe in being a planner. Like you just can't be out here bringing life into the world, which is also a dangerous situation as is without a plan. What happens if, as a doula, the baby doesn't, you can't have the baby in the pool and the baby ain't coming out? Like, have thought about what happens after that. Now, she had already had a C-section, so I'm pretty sure she had been through that process already. And if she knew she didn't want to have it a third time, or a third time, or a fourth time, that's her fourth baby. Anyway, if she knew she didn't want to do it again, I would say, she should have had an extra plan on top of an extra plan and had conversations with doctor, or maybe got herself an OBGYN and a pediatrician and all the things anyway. Like having a team anyway. Like I just feel like we got to be a little bit more strategic. We can't wing things like that. You can't wing your health. And that goes into every situation, right? I'm not talking about just having babies, but I'm just saying Black women. I think just we in general, or Black people, because there's men in the room. I just think we have to be better equipped to handle our health. We have to just be thinking about our health. We have to be in on defense all the time, just making sure that we have what we need and we're prepared at any moment to deal with whatever comes. So that would be my final thought. I love y'all in a real way. My name is Tiara Williams. Like I said, I'm also known as Miss Black Hollywood. And in 2 weeks, actually less than 2 weeks, I'm gonna be in Miami. I'm going to be at Miami at the Black Pow Her Convention conference with Dr. Lene and some of my favorite queens, some of my favorite Fly Nubian queens. If you remember Athena, who used to also be on the show, Dr. Boyce is going to be there. Myself, it's basically like Fly Nubian Money. It's our B1 community, right? We're going to be there talking about money, talking about story, talking about wealth in a real way, in a practical way, and walking you through all the steps to take your business from here to there. You won't leave without a strategy. You won't leave without planning. You won't leave without ideas that can and ways to apply them. So if you are interested in those kind of things and you want to take it to the next level, go to Black Power. I'm making sure that is the blackpowerconference.com. That's blackpowerconference.com. Okay, let me get into this final. I want to read the outro because it's going. Yes, I have an outro. Yes, 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 yes. At the end of the day gonna end. This is not just about one woman. It's what happens when your voice doesn't carry the same weight inside a system. Drop your thoughts below. We want to hear what you learned and what you think about this show, what you think about the topic. We want to have it in our archives. We want to learn from you as well. So make sure that you share. If you love the show, you like and subscribe. And if you want more or want to know when we go live, text Queens to 87948. That's Queens to 87948. Y'all know I'll be on the ones and the twos. So I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all being patient with me. But text Queens to 87948. I cannot go without giving a shout out to our day ones every single day. Anonymous, what's up? You get on my nerve, but I love you. Mama Walterine, hey. Mama, hey girl, hey. Jasmine, I see you, girl. I appreciate you. The Black Lexicon, Double A is in here. Just our regulars. We appreciate y'all. There would be no us without you. Armando, I see you in here. There will be no us without you. So we appreciate your diligence, your commitment to coming and checking us out every day. Whether you're coming to talk crap or to troll us, we love you. We really do, because you really do give us thoughts to consider, and we're having this collective conversation, changing one another. What we get things from you as well, just like you get things from us. Yes, you part of our village. I see somebody said something about a village and I can't see the comment, but yes, we are all a village, and I love y'all. So until tomorrow, we'll be here for the rest of the week. Come on and check us out again, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard tomorrow, and we'll be here same time, same place. We'll see you tomorrow, y'all. Bye.